Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the massive and monstrous comic vault. It is I, Captain Logan, and joining me, as always, is Austin, the Day Ghost. And tonight we've got kind of a twofer again. This is both a comic vault and a request. This was supposed to be the request for last week, and we're going to double up this week. That's why we're not doing Batman comics tonight. Never fear, we'll be back to Batman next week with the first volume of Absolute Batman, which Austin has picked, or at least I think that's the plan right now. Anyway, so tonight our requested comic vault is the first volume of Hulk Visionaries by Peter David, the classic seminal, still to this day beloved, and a lot of people consider the best run on the Hulk. I've only read like an issue here and there of this, particularly the famous Wolverine issue, which is the very next issue in the next volume. That feels intentional, Austin. You get to the end of this volume, and and you get the big tease for Wolverine next issue, and I'm like, were all of the Marvel Visionaries books 8 issues, or did they cap this one off at 8 so that they could use that as the cover for the next volume? Because that makes sense when you're trying to sell it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, possibly. It is a weird amount of issues, because I think it's 9.
Oh, is it 9? I thought it was
weird.
8. I wasn't even counting. I was kind of thinking just page count.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like it added up around to 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they're all 9, or it probably just is. Hey, we can get this as the cover for the second volume.
I think that's got to be why they did that. But anyway, this was requested on Patreon by Joe Turner. Thanks a bunch to him, and thanks for his patience. Because, like I said, this was supposed to be last week, and we've got a big backlog, so a lot of these guys have been waiting for months and months for the request to finally come up. And just a tease, I won't even say what it is yet, but we've got a major movie to do for Thursday, Austin. We've got a big one that both of us are real familiar with that we get to talk about on Thursday.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
Do you know what it is?
I think so.
Thanks to everybody popping in the comments right now, and thanks for watching after the fact as well. Feel free to try to chat with us as we go along here, and we'll interact with you as much as we can. We've already got a couple of super chats right at the start, so I'll answer those real quick, and then we'll get into Peter David's Hulk. 1987. So we're back to the 80s, Austin. This is just a year before the last thing we reviewed on the Vault.
Yeah, I guess that's true. This is 87. So yeah, that is weird how that lined up.
Because last week we did Death in the Family. So John Henry Walker, $1 super chat, no comment, just $1. Thanks, man, appreciate that. And Roomski, $5 Canadian. Thanks for the RQ as always, Cap and Austin. I think that stands for request. Twain, Poe, and Tolstoy may be great writers, but they'll never be Hulk visionaries. That's true. That's just a fact.
That is true.
You can't be a Hulk visionary if you didn't write on the Hulk.
Mm-hmm. Smash quoth the Hulk, as Poe would have written it.
Yeah. Hulk would like Banner to be nevermore.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
As it were. So Austin, right out the gate, I just want to say this was a real surreal experience for me, finally sinking my teeth into some of this. And you know, of course, I'm going to go to the Spawn place with this. It's weird reading this. Reading McFarlane's stuff before he was a gigantic name, and I feel like I'm kind of seeing his evolution into the artist he's going to be for Spider-Man and then for Spawn as we go along with this. Some of his classic kind of experimental panel layouts start showing up as you go along with this, but aren't really there toward the beginning. And I thought that was really interesting, and I feel like his faces are more and more starting to morph into what they're going to be when he starts drawing Al Simmons and Wanda, and even Peter Parker and Mary Jane, and his Rick just looks like his Peter Parker, like almost exactly like his Peter Parker.
He does. Absolutely. But more importantly than Spawn, this book is through from the third issue to the end. Maybe less so for the X Factor two-parter. Is Hulk in a Man Thing book, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Although I'll say I wish it was more that way. I found myself through this enjoying the one-offs where he would just go deal with a singular issue adventure much more than when the A story would wend its way back in. This feels like late 90s early 2000s TV episodic storytelling, right, where or I should say serialized, where you've got your a story that we keep kind of popping back into, but then you've got kind of one-off adventures, but you'll actually progress the narrative some in those adventures, and it's also like always keeping you on your toes with status quo. Like this doesn't live in a real specific status quo for more than 2 issues at a time, which which I really appreciated because, like I said, it just keeps you guessing. It's hard to know where it's going, and like you don't expect, not to get too ahead of myself, but you don't expect Great Hulk to start working with some of the human characters that you've been dealing with as early as he does, for instance.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think it's also important that Peter David's coming onto this book with a ton of baggage. So there's a lot of he doesn't like immediately clean the slate. He kind of like curves the river into what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Um, so like you kind of have like an element of that. It's actually like kind of impressive the way he's able to work all of that, even if it leads to like an awkward first issue.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. Because I didn't find the first 2 issues too much further off from the rest of it, but I did appreciate the momentum as it built as it went along. I think the last issue here is probably the best of these. It's maybe like a two-way tie for me for favorite, but when it starts in that last issue, and again I'm getting ahead of myself, but letting Great Hulk find a bit of his humanity and like really sticking the landing for the teasing it's been doing about like abuse themes and mental health themes. I I got real excited about it, and I was like, I kind of wish this wasn't the last issue we were reading tonight. Not that I needed. I mean, this is kind of wordy, so like I didn't really have time to read any more than this. But you know what I mean. Like I start really seeing what he's getting at about 8 or 9 issues in.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. No, for me, I would say it's like the first issue is okay, but I'm like struggling to kind of find my footing with the book, and then the second issue is a lot better, and then the third issue I think just kind of kicks off running. Pretty much for the rest of this, I was like maybe not as into the X Factor stuff as the rest of the other issues
Yeah, I had that
in
too.
when it was really good, but I don't think they were bad or anything.
They're not. The problem with the X Factor issues is it was Peter David working on that book at the time too. Is that why those cross?
I don't know. I know he does X Factor in the 2000s, I think, but I'm not sure if he was doing it in the 80s. I don't
I
remember.
didn't think he was, but it's kind of weird how it pivots and it just reads like an X Factor book for 2 issues, and the Hulk feels real background there. I like if we did that now, it it reads like the crossover issues in X Factor with Hulk as the guest star.
See, I thought it worked for the Hulk book because, like Hulk you're right, like he's more of the antagonist of it, but Peter David's kind of taking this into more of a like monster horror book, and he kind of just replaces what would be, like the other human characters interacting with the Hulk with the X Factor. And when they pop in, Hulk is still that kind of element where it's not like they come in and it's like a superhero battle between them. Like it is, but he is much more of like a scary monster through that fight.
No, and you're right in that there are several issues where he'll pivot to some other character or characters and introduce you to them and give you a sense of like their plight and motivation. And we do that with a lot of kind of tragic human characters in this, and then the X Factor characters kind of take the reins for that in a two-parter. But the reason I say it feels like he is in their book is I just get real distracted and bogged down with all of the things that suddenly I have to, like, it's like homework that like I have to know about X Factor to know what I'm reading. Where I'm like,
Oh, it's classic comic continuity when they cared. Yeah.
yeah, and like it's cool how much real honest to god continuity and is here and how it feels like everybody's got their ducks in a row. But I'm reading that stuff and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know about this whole like executioner business and that they're pretending to be like mutant headhunters, but somehow that MO is also supposed to help the public care about mutants. Like, all of that was convoluted, and I didn't understand any of it and how they got to that because I've not read early X Factor. And so that was, like, I was just kind of lost with that.
And Josh is in the chat, and he says that he's pretty sure it was Simonson on X Factor at this time.
That's what I was going to say, is I thought she was still on the book at that point. And this wouldn't be too far away from the introduction of Apocalypse, I don't think. I think that's like 85 or 86. If not
Okay.
87, but she creates that character and introduces him in that book. And the only reason I know that is because I actually own that issue. Yeah.
I know that through Marvel Mania because of how much you guys complain that she's like in no way credited on that movie.
That's nonsense. Don't get me started on that again. God.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that.
So let me get back to the first issue here, and then I'll have you give us a rundown of some of this. And I don't think we have to take this issue to issue necessarily, but you could just kind of break down the main beats, because there's a surprising amount of like mythology and history, like shoved into these 8 or 9 issues. Like, quite a bit happens.
Yeah, and I think I've talked about this like when we did Planet Hulk and Immortal Hulk. But in high school, I read the first 4 essential volumes of Hulk, like the old black and white trades.
Oh, cool.
So that was a lot of my Hulk reading. So a lot of it was like, oh yeah, I remember all this stuff. Like this, I remember not liking it at the time, but it was because I was liking this book. I'm like retroactively going like, oh, like it's cool that he's kind of tying these threads together. Like that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool that he doesn't just ignore everything that he's not interested in dealing with. Like, he builds on a lot of history with his character while still going his own way and doing his own thing. And he even like finds a clever way to sort of change the premise of it in a way, because he's got a Hulk that isn't coming out because Bruce Banner gets angry. He's got a cyclical Hulk. He's got like a werewolf Hulk, and he comes out at night. Although they discuss it as almost like a reverse werewolf, just because it's not actually about the moon. It's actually about the sun, and we could talk about all of that.
Yeah,
but
well, it's cool too because like it is funny that he goes back to early Hulk where they clearly just don't really know what the rules are yet. Like they're trying to figure it out.
yeah,
So it's constantly shifting, and it does start where like he only hulks out at night. So it's like kind of cool that he builds.
I was
like,
going
an
to ask
actual
you about that
mythology
because
around that.
I was going to ask you about that because that was not a thing I was aware of. I'm not a Hulk guy,
Yeah.
and so every time we talk about Hulk things, I always feel real unqualified, and I don't always even remember things I've read before just because I don't go back to this stuff. But there are a couple of places where it's referenced that he turns into the Hulk at night when he first gets hit with Gamma, and I was a little confused about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Iron Man they clearly were not happy with his design initially, and then that ends up being a big part of that character. That like his design was constantly shifting at the beginning. Peter David kind of takes that element that you have with Iron Man and applies it to the Hulk, where it's like, okay, there's like these weird inconsistencies where we're like constantly changing stuff at the beginning. Like, let's take that and actually weave it into like a real, honest to God mythology for the character.
Yeah, and this struck me as this isn't one to one or anything, but it reminds me a little bit of something like Morrison on Batman, where it's like throwback while simultaneously updating and modernizing.
Hmm.
Pat-
Yeah, for sure.
Particularly in the art, particularly the way Grey Hulk is drawn, like you can tell there's a lot of affinity for the earliest issues of that character with that.
Hmm. Yeah, Grey Hulk looks awesome in this. I'm sure you know this too. Like he's gray in like the first issue or two because that's what he was supposed to be, but it kept coming out as like turquoise.
Yeah,
So they just went, okay, well he's green. So like that's another way that we're building on that too.
yeah, that's part of why I said it's kind of throwbacky.
Hmm.
And we're getting all the way back to an origin in a way that maybe nobody had written about in a while. And going back to Rick Jones and everything. Like I don't know how often like Bruce Banner going to save him turns him into the Hulk even comes up,
Uh,
because they make a real big deal out of it here, and like how
Pretty often in like the early
okay,
stuff because they're like buddy buddies. Like they almost have like a Doc Brown Marty McFly relationship at the
okay,
beginning. But then obviously he goes off with Cap, and then he goes off with Captain Marvel, I think. So I don't know like in the meantime. Uh, but we are like very much dealing with their relationship in this, and you know, he's got to clean up the fact that Rick Jones is the Hulk at the beginning of this book.
yeah, that was the big plot point I wanted to ask you about because I just can't remember. I read all this in rapid succession, and it's all kind of
Mhm.
jumbling together. I don't remember how. And we'll get to synopsis in a second, but I don't remember how Rick Jones loses the Hulk exactly, or his Hulk.
So the Hulk, he and the leader make a machine where it sucks out the gamma radiation from Rick Jones
Oh, that's right. He does it
and
with the leader.
puts into Samuel Stearns, who, and that's the reason he becomes the leader again, but not like the traditional leader. He becomes the one that has like the weird like crinkly brain.
Yeah. So you had a hard time getting into this initially because of how much of a like reset reshuffle he's doing in that first issue, right?
Yeah, it was very much like right in the middle of things that were happening, so it was just kind of like oh, okay, like I don't have like a grasp of who anyone is or anything yet. Have you ever looked at any of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing?
I not in a long time. I want to say I read the first few issues of that at some point, but it's been a long time.
Oh, okay. I just wondered because it reminded me a little bit of that, to a lesser degree with that book, but that book has like one issue where Alan Moore goes, okay, everything that the other people are doing, okay, that's done with. And then his next issue is basically the start of his actual run. And it kind of felt like that for me here, except he is still playing with it. Like it's not just okay, wrap everything up and now I'm gonna move forward, which is more of what I expected reading that first issue. Like that's cool. Like he is simultaneously setting up things to do in his run while also closing off threads.
Yeah, that first issue is pretty packed, and there's almost too much happening. I
That's why I was having a hard time with it. I was like, "There's so much happening." Like,
Yeah, well, and it sounds like you had a particular expectation coming in where, like, well, it's Peter David. We know how competent of a writer he is. We know how, uh, like unique and specific he is with his stuff. So he's probably going to come in and it's going to tonally like have a specific feel. And you're right. Like it does and it doesn't. When you say when you say you're having a hard time finding your footing with it at the start, do you feel like he also is, or is it just, well, I got to turn this toy box over first, like, because it does read like here's this laundry list of things I've got to accomplish before I can start getting to what I really want to do.
Yeah, I think he has that where it's like, okay, I am stuck with so many things like that people who like had no idea what they were doing just threw in there, and now I got to somehow tie this all up so that I can do what I want to do. And I think he does a really commendable job at it. And it also helped that I was warned about that from the get-go. Like I remember talking to Dan about this like years ago, and him saying like, when you start that run, like give it a few issues because it starts in a really weird continuity place.
Yeah, like on one hand, I was a little overwhelmed because it just felt like thing after thing after thing, and a lot of rules and a lot of kind of like forced exposition and dialogue, uh, with characters like explaining to me why Rick Jones has a Hulk now, and why all of a sudden, and why Bruce Banner doesn't, and like there's all these different permeations of what the Hulk has been, and not that long ago, and I'm like, there's a ridiculous amount of stuff that you have to catch up on. On the other hand, I actually came into this, like, I think we had different expectations. I actually came into this expecting to be more confused, if not overwhelmed, because I just don't know Hulk that well, and I didn't expect to know as many of the characters that are involved as I did, and so and I also appreciated his uh, just giving you a sense of what the status quo has been. So like catching you up on like Thunderbolt Ross just died, and like here's what Rick Jones has been doing, and here's the cast of the Hulkbusters, and they each have kind of different motivations, and like it was a lot to keep up with, but he does a good job of, I don't want to say easing you in, but at least telling you what's happening. Like it kind of feels like recapping of a season cliffhanger. I keep going to TV with this. Like this read very TV to me, and not in a bad way. But like the structure of this is real season of television, but like 7 or 8 seasons in.
Hmm. No, I think that's exactly what it is. Like I do feel like his first issue is kind of a season finale, and you just kind of jump headfirst into that. But I think once we get Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk, that's where I get like some level of grounding.
Yeah.
Because then I have him with Stearns, and I like everything with them in the second issue, where they're trying to work together because he wants to become the leader again, and Hulk's like, I don't know if I can trust you, but okay, like I'll go along with it.
And every this is the
So
other
it gave me something to kind of latch on to.
this is another thing that felt kind of TV about it to me, is every other issue about has a really good kind of mirror or parallel character for the Hulk, like somebody that is somehow going through exactly what he's going through.
Mm. Yeah, for sure.
And like Stearns gives you that, and then you've got a character later, that a bad guy character that is kind of also like somebody's dark side that comes out, and nobody knows that they're related. And then there's another like gamma monster guy. Like there are several of these.
Hmm. Yeah, who is just a zombie from Return of the Living Dead, and it's amazing. And he at one point just starts singing the ending song from Little Shop of Horrors while they fight.
Oh yeah,
And
what was that about?
I don't know why, but I respect it.
What was his name? Half-Life? That's a pretty cool name for a villain. So forgive me, but I'm gonna go to Spawn here and there with this. A couple of the villains in this felt like they could have been Spawn villains. Like it's interesting that that you've got Peter David scripting and plotting this, and of course, famously, those are two guys that didn't get along shortly after this, or I don't know if they liked each other while they were even making this. I have no idea. But it's interesting how much of like stuff McFarlane would do later is baked into this, and I'll talk about this a little bit later. But it also shows me just how much as a writer McFarlane is a hack fraud, and I mean I already knew that. But oh my goodness, when we get to the issue with the with the wife that's abused by her cop husband, my favorite issue of Spawn is just a straight up ripoff of that issue, like full stop, 100%. I had no idea. I didn't know that Todd McFarlane just stole from Peter David for my favorite issue of Spawn, and it friggin' hurt my feelings. A little bit later, I'll break it down. It made me kind of angry, honestly.
Well, because that's issue 3, and we opened straight with that, and that was where, again, I think I've talked about this when we talked about Hulk. Like, the thing that's always kept me from getting really into Hulk.
Look, another 89 reference. It's not even an 89 reference. That movie hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, 89 is referencing this book, sir.
Oh, sure. I'm sure that's what's happening.
Exactly. Tim Burton's a really big fan of comics. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell from his word.
Exactly. No, so because we opened with that in that 3rd issue, and like I said, the thing that's always kept me from being a big Hulk fan is that I gravitate more to like the monster side of it, and the book always has to have that balance between being a monster thing and a superhero thing. While I kind of just want the monster side of it. And obviously that's a big part of why Hulk fans love Hulk, but I think this book is kind of leaning more into what I want from it. But that's the big reason why I like Man-Thing, is because it throws the superhero side out and just does the monster thing. And when we open with that story with the abused wife and the cop husband, I was like, oh, this is just an issue of Man-Thing. Like, I'm like right at home with this. This is just like a horror short with Hulk as the monster.
Well, somebody in the comments mentioned X-Files. I was having a lot of that through this. Like I said, I couldn't stop looking at horror, episodic television with this. What's funny is I'm not a big Hulk fan because I'm not big into horror and monster comics. But if I'm going to read about the Hulk, I don't care about the superhero side either. So like the fact that I'm more of a superhero guy is why I don't really gravitate toward the Hulk. But when he goes superhero, my eyes glaze over. Like when it's at its best, it's absolutely what you're talking about. And I like the really morally ambiguous, doesn't necessarily do the right thing, but thinks he is, and is all about and justifies the means Bruce Banner. And this is that version, and the characterization is just fascinating. And I like that we open it with an explanation for why Bruce Banner tried to be a superhero with the Hulk. He's got a line where he's almost describing the Hulk TV show, where he's like, I had this period where I would just go from town to town, and I would like turn into the Hulk, and I would kind of let that happen to solve these problems. And you get the sense that he has this. I can't even say savior complex. Like, I don't know how much of it is he wants to be a hero and how much of it is he wants he's real insecure, and this is all about his daddy issues and stuff. Like he's real insecure, and he wishes he could be seen as a hero, and he doesn't know who he is without the Hulk. So even though the Hulk is the worst thing that ever happened to him, he also feels real empty, and maybe even he's kind of narcissistic and feels like he doesn't matter without the Hulk. And so he's at the start of this, and this is what I really latched onto in those first couple of issues. While I, apart from when I was a little bit confused about what was happening, Austin, is this idea that Bruce Banner is... Sorry, excuse me. This idea that Bruce Banner is looking for any excuse to be the Hulk again,
Hmm.
and is maybe in denial about that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's cool the psychological stuff that we're doing, where Hulk's like manipulating him within his brain, and then oh, by the way, that bottom panel is one of my favorite panels. Like any of the issues we did, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and
Um,
that is a thing that he'll do quite a bit later with Spawn. There's a couple like really famous Spawn panels that are in silhouette like that, where he's got a real sadistic smile.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. I reminded me. I think there's a panel of what's his name, the ice cream guy.
Billy Kincaid, yeah.
Billy Kincaid. Yeah, there's a panel that like came to my mind of him when I saw that.
Boy, imagine if
What was I
Billy
gonna say?
Kincaid was the Hulk.
Uh, you could definitely be a Hulk villain.
Yeah, that's true. Like, what if Billy Kincaid had a Hulk?
Well, he'd be the ultimate Hulk.
Like, what is that guy's
He'd just
dark
be
side?
horrifying.
He already has his dark side out.
Hmm. Oh, maybe he'd be the opposite. Maybe he'd be like Mr. Rogers in Hulk form.
Do we
Because
ever do that? Do
that
we
is
ever
like a
have
big thing.
like a really scary, awful person that turns into like a happy-go-lucky Hulk? I'm sure that's happened somewhere.
It's got to be somewhere. Probably done something like that.
But anyway, I'm sorry. What point were you trying to make?
Oh no, I was just saying. I really like the kind of psychological stuff with Hulk and Banner, where we see them talk in their mind, and we get
Yeah,
this is the exact page I was going to talk about. This had to have been like groundbreaking at the time, where we get this visualization of his transformation in his brain, where the Hulk's like pulling him in. It's really cool.
yeah. No, that's neat. There's a really interesting identity question through this whole thing of like how much uh, Banner and Hulk respectively are influencing the other one while each of them is in control. Uh, and real quick, I'll get the super chats in a second. One thing I really like about the shifting day to day thing, as opposed to his turning into the Hulk when he gets angry, Austin, is it takes the ambiguity out of that. There's the transformation with the Hulk always seemed like a kryptonite problem to me, where every writer's got to decide just how angry he's got to get, like what what situation really would make him emotional enough or enrage him enough to become the Hulk, and this just gives you a real clear set of rules that you don't have to be distracted uh, by variables with it.
Hmm. No, I see what you mean because it's like the emotional state is very much like you can write any outcome out of that. Like you can have
Yeah.
Bruce Banner get punched and oh he just managed to hold it, or oh no he's going to turn into the Hulk. Like I see where you're coming from with that. Um,
Thematically, that of
mhm,
course is like uh, a real clear metaphor
mhm.
for rage and your Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, and
And I
uh,
imagine we'll get more into it too as they like develop the psychological Bruce Banner and Hulk personas.
yeah, because I don't know if the day to day thing necessarily works on any kind of a thematic level, unless you read something with it. I mean, the only thing I can think of is uh, the way that like not weather, but like the changing of the day to night like does affect people's moods and like where the moon is and all of that. But I don't think he's really getting at anything with that.
No, I think a big thing that works with Peter David's take on this is I think he went back to what originally inspired the Hulk and went, okay, how do I interpret that? And I
Okay.
think with some of that stuff, he's taken that and he also adds like some Wolfman influence into it as well, uh, which is pretty neat. But like I do think it is a lot of just kind of going back and redefining kind of how he sees those early influences.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good call. I mean, I guess the clear, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess the clear metaphor there is just a, we're talking about duality. We're talking about like man's good side and dark, so your light side and your dark
Mhm.
side, and so you're taking a human being and saying we're day and night. So Bruce Banner is
Yeah.
day and the Hulk is night. I guess that's the obvious metaphor.
Yeah, I was about to say that too with like the whole dark side, light side thing as well. It does make me wonder, does Bruce Banner like ever really have to sleep? Like we see him sleep a
That's
few times,
that's a great question.
but it did make me wonder, like, does he actually have to sleep though? Like, can he just be awake in the day as Bruce Banner, and then the Hulk is awake at night?
Well, and that's your Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing too. Like Mr. Hyde always comes out at night.
Hmm. Yeah, because the Hulk is kind of famously a mix of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and
In
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. And so you're right. It's going back to the classic foundation and coming up with another interpretation for it and a real solid
Hmm.
one.
Yeah, and it also gives like a ticking time bomb for it as well, where you could,
Yeah,
because like the emotion thing is something that you kind of have to write into. You know what I mean? It it doesn't leave you where like you have to have it at a certain time. Like he has to do things within a time limit for all of his goals. Because this is also a Bruce Banner that's got like a ton on his plate. Like he's got 18 things he's trying to juggle, and like throughout the issues we read, we can see the ones he's dropping and the ones that he's like desperately trying to hold on to.
it does help that his wife keeps leaving him. He doesn't have to deal with her very much.
That's the ball he keeps dropping. She keeps going off with Ramon.
Yeah, and good riddance, I say. She's awful in this. Like, I mean, Bruce Banner's not a great guy in this either, but I don't know why he's as enamored with her as he is because I she's real superficial. Like she lays out everything she's upset with him about, and like he's lying to her, and he's working too much, and he doesn't give her the time of day, and he ignores her when she's around, and I'm totally with her, and I'm like, yeah, that's an a-hole for a husband. And it's even worse because she kind of feels even like coerced into the marriage where like they even got married at the wrong time and they haven't been married very long, and then I lose all sympathy for her. She completely loses me when he finds her with Ramon, and and her big thing, like, she lays all that out, but then her big thing is, why can't you just be spontaneous? And then
I don't know. I thought that moment was kind of sweet. I'm not gonna lie.
I did not. I thought that was as, and that's where it was TV in a bad way, and I thought
Mhm.
that was as melodramatic and soap opera as it gets. And I get that the relationship stuff in this is like real standard like comic soap opera stuff on the the Claremont X-Men level. Like it's in that vein. It's in that league. That's fine. But when she's like, I just want you to be spontaneous, and he's like, okay. He basically is like, let's go to a hotel room and have sex, and she's like, yay, that's all I
He's
wanted. And then I'm
he's
like, so you're gonna ignore all the horrible things he's been doing to you now because he's being spontaneous? That should be number 66 on your list. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. That's not the way I read it, but I get what you're saying. No, because I mean, a big part of it
well,
is she's like, oh,
what am I missing? Because like I said, I had to read all of this today and I had to blow
yeah.
through it. So what am I missing?
No, what I liked about it was that she's like, here's every single thing that you're putting above me, and you put no time towards me, and like we're barely even married. Like you're way more focused on like what's going on with Rick and like what's going on with the Hulkbusters and all this stuff, and you have no time for me. And then they just like stop and just have a moment together, and that was the big thing I thought was kind of sweet. It is definitely soap opera romance, but
Well,
I thought it was a nice little moment.
I get that one of her biggest complaints is that he's too stoic and unemotional, and that's also real typical. It's like, oh, the man doesn't open up enough, and he's too stoic. But speaking as a married person, their problem is not spontaneity. Like that's not the problem. They're not even communicating well. Spontaneity is something you come to when you're on the same page for like a while. And that's where she just struck me as really superficial and kind of ridiculous.
But I also think it helps that very much is Bruce Banner throughout this book. Like, he is so,
Yeah, it's true.
again, like, he's got the world on his shoulders. He's got his mind in 8 different things at all times. So, like, the fact that he just kind of drops everything in that moment and is like, okay, no, you're right. Like, you're my wife. Like, I've been completely ignoring you. Let's just have this moment together.
See,
for once, Bruce smash.
I didn't read it like that. I read it like, oh yeah, that's right. I've got a wife. I guess I better appease her for a second. And then they do that, and then he's like, okay, now I've got better things to do.
Well, no, because he's. It's worse than that because he hulks out.
Well, yes. Yeah, and then I do really like that. Yeah, I'm being facetious when I say that, but I do like the mystery after that of what exactly did the Hulk do to her.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of wait at least a couple of issues before you see her again. Doesn't it make us wonder, like how bad a shape she's in, and then suddenly she's in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you wait at least 2 issues before you really see her.
And then the Grey Hulk becomes at least partially a metaphor for like temper and rage in a marriage, like a husband that gets angry, sees red, does something awful, whether it's physical or mental abuse, whatever it is. I mean, we cover the gamut of abuse in this. It's child abuse, it's spousal abuse, et cetera, et cetera. And then so like you see red, you almost black out, and then you go, oh God, what have I done? And you can't even hardly remember what's happened. And the Grey Hulk becomes a metaphor for that, and I really liked that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when he has his post-Hulk clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just generic. Like generically, the Hulk is a metaphor for mental illness. This doesn't do the Ang Lee thing. This isn't about depression.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I
do
think
it is about trauma.
Get more. Yeah, I do think we'll probably get more of that Ang Lee stuff, or what Ang Lee was looking at as we go forward, because
we're starting to get into the father
stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's running a field of different mental issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Let me go ahead and read these super chats.
Yeah.
Dan Schneider had another super chat. Grant Morrison, by the way, he said this before I even brought up Grant Morrison myself. Grant Morrison, regarding continuity, said the only thing that is canon is what was influential or had an impact. Everything else is a trivia answer. And I think to some degree you maybe have to have that attitude about it when you're dealing with years and decades of history with a character. I think it's impossible to not accidentally make some continuity mistakes or retcon things or reinvent stuff, tweak things to some degree.
Like, yeah, I think even when it's a single writer, like, you tend to do that with your own work.
With your own work, yeah. But yeah, much less like 80 years of a character. Like you really can't expect a writer to go back and read everything or be able to keep all of it straight. Can you imagine the diagrams? Can you imagine the graphs that you'd have to put all over you? Like, you'd look like a serial killer.
Like, Hulk says he hates purple in this issue, but then in this other issue,
He's
he talks
wearing
about how
it.
much he loves. He's always wearing
And,
purple.
but yeah, and he's happy about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
I mean, I don't want to get into this too much, but I think a lot of it is attitude, and I get irritated uh sometimes when writers make a big deal out of like in the book you can kind of see somebody patting himself on the back about how well he's keeping track of continuity, but then he's just hoping you won't notice certain things, or he's like rewriting it on the fly and pretending like that's how it always was. That can sometimes be annoying. Obviously, with comics especially, I don't care as much about continuity as I do a good story. And there's kind of continuity with a lowercase c and continuity with an uppercase c, because I'll hear comic fans sometimes say I don't care about continuity, and I go, well you have to some degree because that's just storytelling. Like continuity lowercase c is the story that you're telling makes sense from start to finish, and you're not forgetting what was written. And then where it gets a little muddled sometimes is the difference between your lowercase c and your uppercase c, because sometimes if the story you're telling builds too much on somebody else's story, the continuity there is part of your continuity, like of the story thread that that you're telling. And so like what is part of your story, because all of that continuity needs to match, or you're going to be confused about character motivation and stuff. So continuity does matter. That's story.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like, I think it goes into it too, where it's like your big C would also be like, I don't know, Spider-Man doesn't like MJ. Like, you just have that, like, you just drop that in an issue where it's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. But then,
Yeah, where did that
like,
come from?
the smaller one would be like, I don't know, Spider-Man being like, oh, I've never been to Detroit before, but like 16 years ago, there was an issue where he went to Detroit.
That's a great example. Yeah, yeah. I don't care about that, especially because
Yeah, it's.
you have to have kind of good faith with writers. Like, if that guy knew about that, it would be neat of him to remember it and not say that. But he probably just doesn't know that, and you can't expect him to.
Not everybody is Kurt Busiek.
Oh my God, Kurt Busiek. If only we could all be Kurt Busiek. Roomski, $5 Canadian Super Chat. I'm not actually huge on McFarlane's art. Now I want to read some Kurt Busiek. I'm not actually huge on McFarlane's art, but his Hulk and Leader really are the template for all their best designs to follow. He's a great monstrous guy.
Yeah, I would say I'm more like mixed on McFarlane. Like, I can be hot or cold on him, but I agree. I do think this is some of his best stuff. Like, I really like his take on all these Hulk characters, and I agree. I think he is better at like the monster stuff.
I mean, you look at the designs of the best characters in Spawn, and they're all monsters.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Like Violator is one of the best monster designs of all time.
Hmm.
Like Tremor's really cool. Overkill not so much because Rob Liefeld drew him first. Anyway, Bob the Hun $10 super chat.
He's got a bunch of big guns.
He's
so
got big ass
of course
guns.
And then this leader was the template for MC Leader's design, and that worked out.
Apparently, it was way better before they did the reshoots.
Well, yeah, because they went with like a traditional one. What the actual one they went with in the movie is like trying to ape this, but he just looks terrible. But anyways,
It's like worse than I would have expected it on a TV show. I don't understand. Bob the Hun $10 super chat. That TV module. Speaking of that, you describe as straight up based on and inspired by comics. Whedon even referenced Chris Claremont and Steve Gerber as influences on his writing, along with Dickens and Shakespeare. I'm with you on certain shows, and you could maybe even make the argument with something like Babylon 5 and JMS. Uh, JMS having obviously worked in comics a lot. But
Mhm.
there are other examples that maybe weren't straight up inspired by comics, but that fall into that. Maybe looking at some things that were like it gets a little muddled. It's hard to tell like what things would have been looking
Yeah,
at that model and what weren't, I guess. But
and I mean they're both like episodic mediums. Like it's easy to get to some of those
maybe
same trappings.
well, and not just that they're both episodic, but that they're both commercial things that come out at the same time each month or each week, right? And
Mhm.
so, and
That's more
so
so what I meant. I said episodic, but I meant more so like this ongoing. You're right. Like you put it better in the
well,
like the monthly to
I'm
weekly
I'm
thing.
with
But
you. I'm
yeah,
just adding to what you said because I'm with you
yeah.
that it is because it's episodic. Where again, you're telling a serialized narrative, but it's episode to episode, and you want an issue or an episode to more or less stand on its own. But you come to that because it's commercial and because you have an audience that's coming in because you're really doing it because you have two audiences, right? It's that X
Mhm.
Files thing where you have the mythology episodes and you have the one-off episodes, where you want to appeal to the people that are with you week to week and invested in your characters and wanting to see them grow and change. That's where something like this is different from like a Star Trek: The Next Generation, where the characters have to stay stagnant pretty much, and so it's because you have that audience and then you also have an audience that is just channel flipping and you want them to be able to stop on an episode and be able to watch it, or the kid that walks into a comic shop and buys this issue because it has a really cool cover and he's able to
Mhm.
read it. And so I mean you can come to that structure both directions without having ever looked at the other one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I only spent that long on that because it was a $10 super chat. Thanks, Bob the Hun. Appreciate it, buddy. Chewbacca's Lover, $5 super chat. The 2003 Hulk was supposedly looking at this run. Do you see it, or is that a stretch? The sequel was supposedly going to use Great Hulk. Ang Lee wanted him. So I'm just too limited in my knowledge because I've not finished this run, and B, as soon as the father issues come up, I'm immediately thinking of Ang Lee Hulk, and then I'm going, how much have we dealt with that before this? So I just don't know enough to answer that question.
Well, that's something I know more so from Osmosis that that movie's really looking at this run, and Peter David Hulk is one of those things where whenever like anything cool like that with Hulk comes up, I just assume it comes from Peter David, whether it actually did or not. So it's hard for me to say, but I did know that they wanted Grey Hulk to be in that, and he was supposed to be in Age of Ultron as well, except that didn't really have a psychological meaning like Ang
Ang
Lee's
Hulk.
Hulk would.
Hulk Lee.
Ang Hulk. That's what he turned into after that movie didn't do so well.
I so in a little bit I would like to talk about this third issue and why I'm angry with McFarlane about it. But before that happens, can you give us just a quick overarching rundown of what's happening here?
Oh yeah. I feel like it's like probably the longest into a comic vault where we've had a
It
description.
is, but I'm
Uh,
mostly asking you to do that to jog my memory, so
yeah,
that I
of
can
course.
remember to hit certain bits of this. So it's not so much like the audience has been with us for like 45 minutes, and we're finally giving a synopsis. It's more just like take us back to the brass tacks of this to give us a foundation for the rest of our discussion.
Mm, yeah, for sure. So yeah, like we said, the beginning of this, Rick Jones is the Hulk, and Bruce Banner, he like, makes a machine that turns him back into the Hulk, but it turns out he was manipulated by the Hulk within his own brain. And then he meets Samuel Stearns, who isn't the leader anymore, and we find out that just over time he's lost that ability. and he wants Grey Hulk to help him become the leader again. So
Yeah,
they make
he
this
has like
machine
a
that
flowers for Algernon thing.
I've never seen that, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. That's always my reference for the that's a classic short story about and I think it's been adapted before. I've never seen an adaptation, but I had to read that back in high school, and it's a guy that becomes super smart, becomes brilliant, but then he starts to lose it, and he's like tragically trying to hang on to his knowledge.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Sorry,
and
I
and
like had a
everything
complete
everything like
blank. Yeah.
this that does that is riffing on that material. Like that's
Yeah.
the Frankenstein or the Jekyll and Hyde of that old. That's the template for that story. And anyway, as soon as I read that with Stearns, like, oh, we're doing flowers for Algernon again.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Where he's a janitor again, and he's like, I want to be smart. I really like though when when you go through like him becoming dumber, where he's like, oh, and then I locked myself out of my headquarters. I didn't know how to get back in.
I don't know why you were that dumb, but all right.
It's a really complex password cap. You don't even know. Uh, Yeah, so he becomes the leader, and then we don't really deal with him anymore. Like we get a little bit near the end, setting up stuff where he's manipulating people in the government, but that's clearly for later on. And
Everything comes back though. Like I guess that's the other
yes,
reason that these are the issues that should be in this volume is
mhm.
it does feel like we've come full circle by the end.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of the covers when I finished, and I'm trying to remember. I think it is like within the next 5 issues where you have like a big leader cover. So I'm guessing that stuff starts to really pay off shortly after this. But yeah, anyways, so you kind of have, like Cap said, almost like a re-origin of the Hulk, and we kind of go back to basics where now Hulk and Bruce Banner are on the run. So he goes into this town where he deals with a sheriff who's beating his wife. You have him meeting Half-Life, who is, again, like the Return of the Living Dead zombie, but gamma-wise, or gamma-eyes. And um, then we kind of go back to the place that Bruce Banner was working at beforehand, which is called the Gamma something, the Gamma Force, I think, something like that. And that's where you have the Hulkbusters, and they work for Shield, and they're gonna go after Bruce Banner because they figure out that he's Hulk. And you also have all the stuff with Betty Ross, who's Betty Banner now, and she's going off with Ramon. And
Now, explain Ramon to me. Is he supposed to be an
yeah,
ex-husband that she never told him about, or just an old boyfriend or something?
yes,
Because I I guess she's been remarried twice.
yes, because she
Be-
was married to Talbot. Because back in like
okay,
in the early issues, they have it's like very soap opera-y, in that you have that thing where Bruce and Talbot are both fighting for Betty's affections. Is kind of how it goes originally,
okay. Well, then
and
she's also made a little unsympathetic with that too, because she's like, "Ah, you keep lying to me. You're not telling me all of these things." I'm like, "You had a husband. You never told your husband about."
yeah. So I don't know if Ramon starts here, if he's from somewhere earlier,
Well, yeah,
but
but remember, there's that scene
he's
where
here.
Bruce Banner goes,
No, yeah,
"Oh,
Bruce
you
Banner
mean
has no idea.
Talbot? He has no idea about this character." I don't understand how you find anything sweet between them at all. This seems like a toxic relationship, and these people
Because
should
that
have
moment they
never
had
been
was
together.
nice. And she specifically did not sleep with Ramon. And she left him by the end. It's all working out, Cap. Everything's coming up, Millhouse.
Okay, okay.
Uh, I don't know.
I just think she's kind of awful. Uh, and that's not me saying Peter David writes poor female characters usually, because he's got a real good reputation for not doing that.
No, you just think she's a bad
I
person.
just think she's a bad person.
Hmm. That's fair.
She is written
Her
like,
her dad just died, so she can go off with Ramon for a week.
well, and to be fair, I'm playing this up a little bit, but to
Mhm.
be fair, it's, and maybe I would have to read the whole run. It's also possible that he's intentionally making her flawed in that way, and that she'll learn something from it.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Let's
much
read
I'm
this
supposed to
in
be rooting
chat.
for her with that. I bet not at all, but I'm not there
Uh,
yet. So
Batman Kicks Ass in the chat did say
that's
that
true.
he
He
really
does.
wished that we could
Oh,
read the
so
next batch of issues because we like really get into that and we have a whole conversation that brings them on the same page.
well, maybe one of us can try to pick it in the not too distant future. It would be good to finish these.
Hmm. Well, he's got a huge run too.
Yeah, we can't promise to go through the whole thing, but well, like I'm
uh,
wanting to do more Ninja Turtles. We've got Batman for the rest of this month. Like,
mhm. Yeah, it's only a week. We're getting to the end of the month,
I
but
know we might have to do some Batman next month too. We
I
haven't
have I
we
have
haven't gotten enough
I have my
Batman.
next few I have my next few planned though. So,
Yeah, I mean I more or
uh,
less do too. So I don't know when we'll get back to this, but anyway,
yeah. So you have Quarterman, who is the kind of like head Shield agent that's working at the Gamma facility, and he's being forced to kill Bruce Banner and the Hulk. And the X Force show up and they fight Hulk and they capture him. And he's told by the shadowy government group that he has to kill the Hulk. And Quartermain's like, nah, I don't want to do that. I like Bruce Banner. He's my friend. So instead, he blows up the facility. And then they all go off on the run together. And
yep.
then they go to they go to the carnival and they meet Firestarter.
Yeah, and then like I said, there's all these interesting kind of one-off villains.
Mhm.
One of my
Oh yeah.
favorites is, and I don't understand her or where she comes from at all, but you have this kind of this kind of wraith like character, or like a Grim Reaper kind of character that comes in to kill characters that don't want to live anymore, and the issue is called mercy killing, and I liked her a lot. That
Yeah.
whole thing
No,
was
I thought
great,
all of the like one-off villains were really cool in this.
real
I really
memorable.
like. Yeah, exactly. I really liked her. I liked the sheriff. I liked the pilgrim ghost man.
Yeah,
Uh, all that stuff was really cool.
yeah, that was fun. That kid that he's the evil side of was real messed up. But
Hmm.
you kind of sympathize with like how disconnected he is from the world, and how he just doesn't have any role models to look up to, and like
Yeah, and it's this thing where the Hulk, throughout this book, he wants to be able to turn Bruce Banner off, and he can just be the Hulk at all times. And you see the kind of disturbing end of that, where the Pilgrim Ghost guy within him can kind of just like switch at any moment that he wants, and it's kind of made this guy like the Bruce Banner side of him. Yeah, like he's got no real goals or aspirations. Like he's kind of just sleepwalking through life.
yeah, and then that deals with how we need our dark sides, because
Hmm.
when Bruce Banner kills his dark side, the kid dies.
He,
Like
well, he goes
he
into a
can't,
coma.
or
It's even
he goes in
scarier.
a coma. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And then that felt very X Files. But yeah, he can't live without that side.
Hmm.
And that was also a real good paralleling character, because this is a version of Hulk and Banner where the other one is more present when he's subdued, and they're like we said, they're influencing each other,
Hmm.
and so that's like the full extreme of that, where the ghost guy, like you said, can come in and out at will, and Banner would like to be able to do that. And it almost feels like foreshadowing, where I'm wondering if maybe at some point in the run he's able to do that. I've not read this, so I don't know if that happens. It probably doesn't. But I did have that thought.
Well, I know this is the run where Professor Hulk comes from, so
Oh,
we will
okay.
have some form of
Maybe that is
merging them together.
okay, but in that way, that is kind of foreshadowing, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of, we're already starting to kind of sow the seeds a little bit for them not being so at odds. But one of the things I really like is that when the Hulk first comes out, he and Banner are at such loggerheads that the Hulk, when he knows it's going to be daytime, he will purposefully set Bruce Banner up in like a really horrible situation just to be an asshole. Where in one issue he just drinks every bottle of
Yes.
liquor in a liquor store so that Bruce Banner will still be drunk by the time he turns, so that he'll be arrested so we can't go back to that gamma
And then
facility.
and then the cops are like, "How did this scrawny guy do all that?"
But my favorite one is when he leaves Bruce Banner just on top of a giant column in the middle of the desert.
Oh, I forgot about that. Well, and then in turn, and Bruce Banner's not doing this sadistically, but the Hulk will get irritated because he'll Hulk out around Bruce Banner's friends, and then he's like, "God, now I have to deal with people."
Hmm. Oh yeah, you have that classic Rick Jones thing where he hulks out and then Rick Jones immediately has to be like, "Hey, don't kill me, Hulk. I am your friend. I am Rick Jones. I am your Jimmy Olsen." And so we get some good stuff out of that.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun in this.
Hmm. Yeah, it. Rick Jones is one of those characters where, like, I don't know how we did him in the MCU without Rick Jones,
Yeah,
and just every time I go back to Hulk where he's there, I'm like, no, seriously, like, how did we not do that? Like, he's such an important character for the Hulk, and I mean, you go back to the original Marvel stuff, and he's the big thing that connects all the Avengers originally.
I mean, maybe we would have if we had kept making solo Hulk movies, but you'd think you'd start with him for
Hmm.
obvious reasons.
Yeah, he's your like easy eyes in character when you're making a Hulk movie.
And it would have been nice to have that connection with him and Captain America.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, you could have had some great stuff with them in the first Avengers movie.
So real quick, I want to complain about McFarlane in this third issue. I gotta break this down for a
Yes.
second. So in this issue, you have this horribly abused wife who's being both physically abused and mentally just gaslit into oblivion, and her husband is the town sheriff, who everybody's kind of afraid of. He's got this bad temper, and the whole town would kind of love to just burn him down, but he's got too much power. Like nobody likes him, but he also kind of holds the town together, and he is hilariously oblivious to just how much she hates him and wants to kill him, because at the beginning of the issue, she gets his gun and trains it on him after he's beat the ever loving crap out of her, and then blamed her for it. And he does that repeatedly through the issue. He is not sympathetic in any way, and like I guess you can assume that at one time he probably wasn't like this, and he's I don't know if it's just stress or what exactly this guy's problem is, but he's somewhat two dimensional. The character that McFarlane rips off is even more two dimensional than this guy, and or that is a ripoff of this character. And anyway, she trains his gun on him, and he's like, "Don't play around with that." Like she's a kid just playing with toys. Like you can't tell your wife is trying to murder you right now. And he's like, "Well, luckily I don't keep any bullets in it." And then at the end of the issue, she finally ends up actually killing him, and it's a little bit ambiguous as to whether she's doing it on purpose, but you can kind of guess that she takes the opportunity when it arises. And what makes him even more of a monster than he seemed even at the beginning is she's uh, like really trying to help him at the end, and he blames her for embarrassing him in front of everyone publicly. And I'm like, I don't know, he deserves to die now more than he even did before.
Oh, it was such a sweet moment, Cap. No, I think one of the best things about how Peter David approaches that topic is just kind of how human it is, not just in the abuse angle, but in her narration where she's talking about it like, oh, I watched this movie where this person met them in the past, and like, what would they say to them, and like, how would I do that? Like, I thought that was a really great way of approaching that.
Yeah. Well, Spawn 29 is
Is
there's
that the abusive parent one? I'm
yeah,
trying to remember.
yeah.
Okay.
So there's this abusive father who's a
And there's the kid with like the really wide eyes. I remember that.
so there's an abusive father who's a cop. Like it's I got 2 pages into this and I went, "Are you serious?" Like he just stole this, except it's an abusive father instead of an abusive husband. And actually, that guy has more clear motivation for being the way he is than this one. To give McFarlane a little bit of credit, just because he's that way because his wife died. So like I guess that's something. But anyway, the Hulk is in the same role that Spawn is in, that kind of, because Spawn kind of comes in and punishes the guy for it. And in this, there's this more clear metaphor where through several of these issues, it's about characters that are monsters, like the Hulk in different ways. Uh, but anyway, and then the kid picks up the father's gun and kills him at the end of the issue. Like the structure of it is almost exactly the same, except that
Hmm.
he doesn't try to do it at the start. And there's also this kind of nice twist in it, I guess, because it's the guy has two sons, and there's an older one and a younger one that's more innocent, and you think it's gonna be the older one that kills him, but it's actually the younger one that does it at the end, if memory serves. So that's kind of a nice twist. But anyway, it's just crazy how close it is.
Yeah, for sure. And to give Peter David like a little bit of credit too, I think in terms of the motivation for being abusive, uh, I I do think that like okay, like I have a dead wife now, I'm abusive. Like it is very uh like common like storytelling, like kind of cliche
Yep,
thing. I think not
that's
that that's
true.
an issue, but I do think it probably is a little bit more realistic what you have here, where he was just a nice guy and slowly over time uh kind of like withered down as
The
the
pressures.
relationship went on. Yeah, exactly. And we don't really get into his head, but at the same time, like I don't know, like I can buy that.
He's got a
I can
real
buy that for
tough
$1.
high pressure job, and he's just taking it out on his wife when he gets home. Dan Schneider, abusive
Yeah.
cops isn't an original concept that's been done a lot of times, basically cliche. Yeah, but I wouldn't have even thought of it, except McFarlane drew this issue, and there are a lot of panels in this issue that remind me of 29. I
And I mean, it's not like McFarlane, you know, doesn't reuse things in his Spawn work that he did at Marvel. Like,
Yeah. And it's more frustrating because there are so few good singular issues of Spawn, and because the guy's not a reader, and so you look at his influences, and like where are his storytelling influence is going to come from if he doesn't read stories? Oh, stuff he did with other people in the past. Okay.
Hmm.
Dan Schneider, $2 super chat. Abusive cops have been done many times as a trope. Yeah, I just went through why I think it's more than that here.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. No, and I just really appreciated it because, like, I said, this is very much just how most of the issues in Gerber's Man Thing run are presented. Where it's like, here's this very like emotional human story, and then the monster will kind of weave its way in, but we're mostly following that story, and it was really cool to get that with Hulk.
And again, I was more interested in these than I was like the Hulkbuster plot.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
admit my eyes glazed over a little bit here and there with that stuff, like with the
Yeah.
the kind of crazed leader guy in the Professor X wheelchair. I I liked that thematically, but I didn't. I didn't really care about it overall. I felt like we kept going back to it too often, and I couldn't get real excited about that. But
I
I
just thought it
did.
was funny because he seemed like a toy before anything. Where I could see the toy that they made at the time. Where he's got like his little laser chair he sits on.
Yeah. Well, and enough time passes in this. I was like, is that foot gonna ever heal? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you got maybe we'll get better. I don't know.
but I do like the multiple examples of characters that themselves kind of become monsters in trying to hunt down the Hulk. That like the Hulk brings
Mhm.
out the worst, not just in Banner but in other people, and he's proving the negative side of the human condition by the way people react to him, and it makes the Hulk more sympathetic because he's gone around with crazed people trying to hunt him down so many times that you see why he just wants to be left alone. And
Mhm.
you can even sympathize a little bit with how much he sometimes revels in getting revenge on people for that. Uh, and so like he is humanity's dark side, but he also is a victim himself sometimes, which is why he can be
Mhm.
both Hyde and Frankenstein.
Yeah, no, he does a really good job with like that Frankenstein element where the people around him are more so monsters than he is to a degree. And obviously, like this is also a Hulk that's a little bit more evil than he is, in other places.
Nicholas
At the
Bodo
same time,
says the abusive father issue is the thing I remember the most from Spawn year, and I imagine it was a difficult read for Cap. That was my introduction to Spawn. I read that way too young to read it, and it really hurt my feelings
Mhm.
and resonated with me in as you say, like a really difficult way. And you'd think I would never want to read Spawn again after that, but it was. I also at the time thought it was really well done, and I loved the art, and it was just a real provocative thing that like I wasn't supposed to be reading, so I wanted more of it. Uh, so yeah, but I will say it's tough every time I go back to it. Like it still bothers me, and I'm still able to go back to the headspace I was in when I read that back in the day. It is a little bit funnier though if you read it right after the Angela miniseries, when he goes through this big epic like journey to hell with Angela, and then he gets all messed up, and then he drops down into that issue into a kid's red flyer wagon, and like it's such a great standalone issue. You almost don't. It almost doesn't matter what happens right before it. It's very odd to read in sequence.
Mhm.
Or I guess it was odd for me because I didn't know what happened before that, and then when I did Spawn Year and I read the Angela miniseries, I was like, wait, that's what happens, right? Okay.
That's like James Bond. You go too big, and then you got to bring it down. And you get too big, and you got to bring it down.
Yeah, it works. It was just that's not what I pictured as a kid.
Hmm. But now we have Half-Life, who is awesome.
Half-Life is awesome, and feels like a Spawn villain. Like he should have been in that book.
Well, he also reminded me of the Ang Lee movie. I don't know if you had this, where there's that awesome part where Hulk just leaves Bruce
Oh, that's what you're talking
on
about.
top of this. Yeah, what an a-hole. Um, but the whole thing with Half-Life is that he like is absorbing the gamma radiation from Hulk whenever they're around each other.
Oh,
And it
that's what
reminded
it
me
is. Okay.
of the climax with his father in the movie.
Yeah, good call.
It also has the greatest ending of these, where he beats him by just throwing his limbs like hundreds of miles away.
Did it seem at all convenient that he shows up right when he does in the middle of all of this, or is that connected to the story in a way I wasn't appreciating?
Well, that's connected to the A story just in terms of like the gamma bomb thing, where he's a new gamma creation because they're doing tests with
Oh,
these gamma
that's right.
bombs.
That's right. Sorry, like I said, some of this is
It's
running
maybe
together, so I need you to remind me what's happening.
yeah, and this is just, I mean, it just happens to be the first time they run into each other. But he talks about like over the last year, he's been kind of just walking around, and then he dies by day. So his whole thing for the audience is he is Hulk if Bruce Banner is dead.
Yeah.
So in by day he's just a corpse, and then by night he like hulks out into a zombie, and he will just walk around, and then morning hits, and then he dies, and then they rebury him, and they find his corpse,
So
and now
this
he finds
is
Hulk.
this is suggesting that if you get hit with gamma and some version of the Hulk comes out of you, initially you're gonna end up with the day and night thing. Does Peter David have some kind of explanation for why that eventually mutates into he does it when he's angry?
So that I don't know. I imagine with Half-Life, it's the same thing as Bruce Banner, where he's hit with a gamma bomb and he's also out in the open. So he's also being hit by sun rays, which is what they explain
That's
is
what
the
it
reason
is.
why he hulks out at night. And that's probably why the leader and Abomination don't have any form of that. Um, Because I'm trying to remember with Abomination. I don't. I think he's also just permanently Abomination, like the leader is, but I can't remember. It's been too long since I've read some of that stuff.
Another identity thing that's kind of interesting, uh, and I appreciate how solid the rules are with this, is how the Hulk is more docile when there's uh, there's more sun.
Mhm.
Isn't that the idea?
Yeah, they mentioned that where like the sun rays mix with the gamma rays, so the Hulk is weaker when it's a full moon because you have more sun rays bouncing off of the moon, and during a new moon, uh, he's much stronger and I think like more in control over them than he is when it's a full moon.
And the reason I say it's an interesting identity thing is because you've got he's supposed to be at his most docile and his weakest in this last issue when he meets the kid that's that reminds him of Banner when he was younger and has been abused and stuff, and so suddenly he like cares about this kid and wants to take him on under his wing and almost makes him his sidekick. I actually thought that issue was going to end with him leaving with this kid. I was really surprised that didn't
Same.
happen.
I was kind of like, oh, I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I did too. And so then you're wondering like how much is Banner actually influencing him? How much honest to God humanity does the Hulk have, or how much of it is just like how much sunlight there is? And then that starts to remind me of like with human beings nature and nurture, and how much of what we do is our being a product of our experiences versus like chemical processes, and all of that's really interesting.
Hmm. Well, I guess too we should mention that there is a little bit of talk that the Grey Hulk isn't Banner's Rage, like the Green Hulk is, and we also do mention that he is weaker than the Green Hulk. And I know from just osmosis, I think that the Green Hulk is the Grey Hulk is supposed to be, I think like his ego, like just he's like fully
Okay,
like the cocky Banner,
I thought it still
but we haven't really
started.
gotten that.
I thought it still started with his rage only because maybe I was reading it wrong. I thought this Hulk still had all the memories of the old Hulk. Like I thought it was that Hulk, but just like kind of retooled.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure because we're not fully getting
Like
into
do
it,
do we
but
consider this a different character?
probably not. Probably just like different shades of Banner's personality, I would think. Where it's he's got more aspects of that. Like he's a little bit more uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little just like cocky, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, because
When they
certainly
mention,
the
oh,
flavor of
sorry.
it's different. Like he's smarter. He's more sarcastic.
Mhm.
He's got his wits more about him.
Yeah, and there's even a part where he makes fun of like the Hulk speech thing, where he's like, "I
Yes.
can't believe I used to talk like that,"
Yeah,
which is
which
cool
suggests
because
he remembers that.
yeah, which is also cool because old Hulk does not have Hulk speech. It's like it is cool that we're kind of going back to that and building more off of that as a persona.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, there's some things that I just can't speak to too much without knowing what the rest of the run does with it, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah, exactly. Grey Hulk is also like weirdly like way more quippy about Jean Grey when he fights the X Factor, where he just keeps crapping on her, and it's really funny. Where
Yeah,
he's
I
like, "Oh,
thought it was.
you have a power. I don't even know what it is. I can't even see it. You just wave your
I
hands
can't
like
even
that."
see it. What is this?
What is it he says? He's like, "What is your power? Just making squinty faces and moving your fingers."
Yeah, I guess I missed any talk that he wasn't just Banner's rage, but I can tell obviously the way he's acting that there's more to it than that. And again there's that question of how the two of them are influencing each other.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would have picked up on it if I didn't know that that was a big thing with Grey Hulk, but they're dropping the seeds. So like the fact that I'm already thinking that, I'm like, oh, okay, here's like a scene where Rick Jones is like, oh, I don't think he's Bruce Banner's anger entirely, and just things like that. Jean Grey also kind of has a moment like that where she's talking about Hulk and why he's different.
Yeah, the ego idea makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Oh, and you know
Yeah, I
what?
could be wrong about that, but I
Especially
think that's what it
because,
is.
sorry, I just thought of this. Especially because Freud keeps coming up.
Oh yeah, we
Freud is
love
mentioned
Dr.
like
Freud.
3 or 4 times through this.
Yeah.
So that's Peter David coming right out and saying he's doing a egoid thing.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I've always heard, but we're more so just getting the seeds to it here.
And immediately, of course, I'm looking for a third thing. It's like, okay, well then, like one of these has to be id, and one of these things has to be super ego. But you only have uh, Bruce and the Hulk. So, like
Hmm.
what is the mediator? What's the other thing?
I guess whenever we get to Green Hulk or Professor Hulk, like that would be your third.
Your third thing.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Oh, this page made me laugh really hard because I thought he was gonna like spray them with the water like to
That's what
hurt
I
them,
thought he was gonna do.
but instead he just goes, "Watch how cool I am," and just starts drinking out of a fire hydrant.
Yeah, it was weird the way he narrated it. He was like, "I'm going to drink from this fire hydrant and leave." That's
Well,
great.
because he's like, "Oh, you think you can hurt me? Check this out." And he starts drinking
Yeah,
from
that's
a
what it
fire
was.
hydrant.
I
It's
really
really
thought
funny.
I really thought this was going to be my favorite issue, and then
Mhm.
a couple more after this topped it. I thought it kept topping itself.
Sure, yeah. It's really hard for me to pick between some of these like more side story things that they're all really fun.
I think overall, it ends up being that last issue for me with the Funhouse Mirrors
Hmm. I think because
and
it's fire
and the
starter.
kid. I because it all clicked into place thematically where I was like, okay, I see what he's doing. Like I really needed the uh insecurities with the father to come up because of just
Hmm.
how much parental and spousal abuse we keep dealing with.
Hmm.
And I thought it was nice that all of that linked up in what initially felt like a side, one-off story that ends up being for Greyhawk's character the most important story. And what's cool is you see him because this is obviously something you wouldn't have with standard classic Green Hulk, who's just a personification of rage. You're seeing honest to god character arcs happen with Grey Hulk. And
Hmm.
that's the biggest one where he goes, "Oh, I actually care about this. Not just do I care about this kid, but I'm realizing that I have feelings about what happened to Banner, and I don't know what to do about that because ostensibly I hate Banner, but I guess I must be more him than I thought I was." So there's that, but there's these kind of
Yeah.
mini character arcs that he'll have here and there.
Well, he reminds me a bit of Ultron, where like Ultron, what's interesting about him is he's like, oh, humans are stupid and weak and whatever. And he's so lost in his own ideology that he can't see that he's also human, where it's like, he makes a son for himself, he makes a wife, like he's still kind of locked into the things that make people human, and he doesn't understand that. And you have that to a degree with Hulk, where he hulks out at one point, and he's like, where's Betty? Like, what's up with Betty? And they're like, oh, uh, do you want to go save Betty, or do you want to stop the gamma bomb thing? And he's like, Betty's stupid. Why would I want to do that? Let's go do the gamma bombs. And they're like, no, like, there's clearly some connection you have with Betty. It was the first thing you asked about when you hulked
Right.
out. Like, clearly some part of you actually cares. And he's like, nah, that's stupid.
He's in massive
Betty's
denial about
dumb.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a really cool moment too where later on they're like, "Okay, Hulk, are you ready to go?" He's like, "Yeah, let's go get the gamma bombs." Like where he specifically writes B dot 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 and then
Oh, I
says
missed
gamma
I
bomb.
missed that. That's great.
Yeah.
I remember when. See, this is another thing that makes these issues feel more on the X Factor side to me, where it's like Iceman is having issues with his powers, and then there's a hilarious footnote that's like, "See X Factor for more of Iceman's problems," and that made me laugh.
Also, this page that you're on has one of my favorite bits of art where everybody's shocked and they're all like, like that kind of face, and then you just have Cyclops like they all have the same face except for him.
He's the leader, man. That's that leader
He's the leader
face.
of the bunch.
Yeah, he's got everything just bounces off of Cyclops.
This sounds like the worst X-Men team ever.
It is.
There's only three of
Well,
them.
it makes sense that it's the worst X-Men team for another reason too, which is they're masquerading as mutant hunters. And you gotta love the bit where they're all sitting in a car and they all decide together unanimously we're causing more harm than good. Should we change? Begrudgingly, I mean, I guess we should. And then Cyclops is like, I guess we'll just quit saying that we're exterminators. 4 pages later, they're just right back to doing that again.
was also an awkward team dynamic because you have Gene and Scott who are a couple, and then Iceman. He's just the third wheel.
He's their adopted son.
Which is awkward because he also wanted to get with Gene originally.
Well, sure, but
He didn't win out, so they adopted him.
look, it was the 60s. They were all men
We're talking
except for
about
the
Freud.
one. There was, if we're talking about Freud, there's one hot chick in the whole mansion, Austin. They're all going to be interested in her. There's no way around that.
Yeah, exactly. Even Professor X.
Yeah.
As Freud would say, you look at something that's slightly phallic and you see Iceman.
One thing that was interesting, and I kind of spoke to this earlier, but this interesting McFarlane's art in this is he does a lot of pretty standard Marvel-looking panel layouts, and then occasionally he'll go to one of his like classic Spawn-esque, and Spider-Man did it too, like almost full-page spreads where you don't really have any panels, but there is a panel layout, if that makes any sense. And I'll find one, but I was surprised by how few and far between they were. Like, I was surprised to ever get to one.
That's an unfortunate cover. Weird.
You just think that's not a very good cover?
No, it looks weird. I don't know.
What's unfortunate about it? Oh, yeah, like this.
Just posing.
So this is your classic Spawn page, and once you get to Spawn, he's got a lot of issues that several or most pages will look like this, where you don't have a grid at all, and you can see the panel layout, but you take all the lines out of it. And then you'll usually have like a crazy close up on a face, and then you'll have some small panels with like a quick, sequential thing happening. And I've always loved that about McFarlane art, but it was really interesting to ever get it with this because I wasn't expecting it because I thought it was just doing standard Marvel layouts, and then you get to a page like this, and I'm like, oh, it's McFarlane layouts, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that absolutely is a McFarlane Spawn layout.
It's cool.
I'm pretty sure that exact layout is in Spawn #1.
It is.
The skull.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with
McFarlane, you hack.
You hack, and with Spawn with his like agony face with the bubbles coming out.
Mm-hmm. Hey McFarlane, remember when Peter David wrote this?
This made me wish Peter David had written Spawn. I was having that a lot.
I mean, at least him not writing Spawn led to that legendary debate between both men.
Yeah. Yeah, which makes it just really kind of surreal reading their collaboration finally.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they mentioned like difficulties in that they had working together in that debate, but it's been a while. I can't remember that for sure.
I haven't listened to that in probably 12 years, but... Well, Austin, we've been at it for over an hour and a half. What else do you want to talk about? I mean, there's definitely more stuff that we could bring up.
Oh, for that mercy killing girl, the way he takes her out is amazing. Where she becomes like soap that starts to like engulf him, so he pours gasoline on himself.
Yeah, that was messed up.
Blows himself up. It's awesome.
I really liked her, so it hurt my feelings when he killed her.
She came back at the end.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But just in the moment, I was like, oh. Mm-hmm. We see her weird alien form. That felt very Star Trek to me.
Oh yeah. You also have the tracker from Man of Steel at the beginning of the issue, where they put their tracker on his truck.
I like these little kind of mini arcs, for just random one-off characters where you'll get a whole, and we don't bog it down too much because I've read stuff that'll do that, right, where you'll introduce a character that you're never going to see again. You got to read their whole backstory. You got to find out what their favorite flavor of ice cream is and how many pets they have, and then you get to the end of the issue, they're never going to matter again, and you're like, why did I read this whole character's backstory? And he is really economical about it, where he basically just gives you a character motivation for a bystander, so that it feels like we're populated in, well, two things. It makes it feel like we're populated in a world with real people, and you get little microcosms of the Hulk dilemma with all these different characters dealing with the dark sides of their personalities, or the dark sides of other people's personalities.
Yeah, it's like if the Lou Ferrigno Hulk show is Hulk in Highway to Heaven, like just going from place to place, interacting with people and putting them off into a better spot, it's almost like that idea, but he's going through like Tales from the Crypt episodes.
Yeah, good call.
They're just, these cool horror shorts. And I mean, Peter David's just really good at the kind of short story element of it.
I like the imagery of the Funhouse mirror with Hulk, because that's the last.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that.
That's the last character on Earth you'd think you'd do this with, because again, classically, he's just personification of anger. He wouldn't be a character that you'd look at through a Funhouse mirror and see like a lot of different versions, aspects of. How do you do like a bunch of weird perversions of the Hulk? He's just a big monster that's, all of our dark sides, right? And you've got kind of a nice bit of foreshadowing when you do that the Hulk is developing the Hulk, or sorry, that Peter David is developing the Hulk as a complete, like, well-rounded character now. Is one of the big things I got out of this anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That kid that kicks him is also really lucky that he's not emotion-based anymore.
That's true. Yeah, for a split second, I kind of expected the Hulk to come out right there, and then it was like, oh yeah, that's not how that works in this.
Yeah, I don't work like that no more. Exactly.
If we'd done that in the Avengers movie, like if that was the rule, the line would have been, what's your secret? It's like 10 p.m. That's my secret.
Well, imagine if he still hulked out, but it was day, but he was like, for me, it's always nighttime. It doesn't even make sense.
See, I almost said that, but it just seemed ridiculous. So,
well, you could do like the Ghost Rider thing. We just in the shade. You can't go in direct sunlight. He's got to fight in the shade.
But yeah, I really like the arc with this kid. Because you wouldn't even think Hulk has this in him, and it's such a light switch moment. I feel like Peter David is taking a giant risk in having the Hulk suddenly really empathize with this kid and console him like this, and it completely works. And like, it shouldn't, but it does.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like that. They kind of start this off where he just blasts Hulk right in the face with fire. So Hulk's like, "That's it. I'm gonna murder this child."
Yeah, and everybody's like, I mean, the kid didn't do it on purpose. Like, he's got this superpower he can't control. Well, and he's also you're right, he's just Firestarter, which is one of my favorite Stephen King things.
Yeah, and there's even a joke about it where Rick Jones is running away, and he's like, it's like we're in a Stephen King novel.
He goes, we're in a bad Stephen King novel. Which is not fair, because that's a good Stephen King novel. But
I was going to say, that probably hurt your feelings.
a little
My copy of it's right there.
But, that's great. Do you have it in hardcover?
No, I have like no books in hardcover. I always buy paperback.
I was curious. I only have that in softcover. I'd love to have a hardcover for that. But anyway, but yeah, he's another clear parallel for the Hulk, because he has this power that he can't control, that just comes out whenever it's going to come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it made me really want to see what their relationship would have looked like. But that's also because he's got an abusive father that he killed too. So like that's
Yes.
also how we're paralleling the abusive father thing.
Yeah,
His setup is like
for a
really
second
tragic.
I forgot about that. Like I knew they both had abusive fathers, but I forgot that he killed them because he's
Mhm.
Firestarter. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're his setup is kind of sad, where he just lives with a Shield agent that pretends to be his dad. Same with I want to read that
Oh yeah.
Spider-Man issue they talk about that he was in before this because that sounded really interesting. I've never read that one.
But this is the first inkling that you get with the Hulk of any kind of compassion like this. Like he's got mercy earlier, but not straight up compassion, right? Like
Hmm.
there are like the shield agents and stuff that he begrudgingly decides not to fight because it's in his best interest to work with them. But that's about it. Like
Hmm.
otherwise, he's all. I don't know if I want to say he's straight up sadistic, but like he does kind of revel in hurting people a lot.
Well, and importantly, because Rick Jones is your kind of connection with it, like, okay, there's more. There has to be some banner in him because he does have some sort of connection to Rick Jones, where he is, he doesn't attack him. He's not, uh, just violent against him. And then he brings up Bruce's dad, and Hulk kind of starts to turn on him, where he's like, I'm just gonna like purposefully like hit you because I can. So we're also making it seem like, oh, maybe he doesn't have that side of him. Maybe we're wrong about that. And then you get the stuff with the kid.
Yeah, and it's a departure from how he's handled it before because you'd think he'd have this moment of vulnerability with this kid, and then immediately after
Mhm.
this, he would again be in denial about it and pretend like it didn't happen. And that's not what he does. He puts him on his shoulder and he owns it, and he's like, "This kid's my friend now," and nobody can say anything to him about it. And because what I expected him to do is basically Bruce Banner is almost taken over at this moment because it's so close to home for him, and then the Hulk will regain control. That's not how it reads. It reads like this is all from the Hulk's personality, and obviously Banner, like you said, is in there, but it doesn't feel like he's pulling strings. It feels like this is this character feeling this
Mhm.
way. Like there's a distinction.
Well, because then the kid says that, like, I want to stay. I don't want to go with you all today. I do want to stay with my fake dad. And when they get in the car, they're like, Hulk, are you sad that that kid didn't come with us? And he's like, that kid's dumb. Like he tries to play it off, but you can tell it's not.
Yeah,
He's not saying that earnestly. Like he is kind of playing it off.
you're right, but he doesn't do that right away.
Hmm.
Because I
No, and I
expected you
don't
to
even
turn the
think he's
page
being
and he
honest about it.
I expect you to turn the page after he consoles the kid and he's like, get out of here, kid. Like I was
Yeah, what he
shocked
does with
when he puts him on his shoulders and
yeah.
is continuing to keep him close and make sure he's okay. I was shocked by that.
Yeah, 'cause that's how he is with Rick Jones, where Rick Jones is like, "Hey, don't kill me," and he's like, "Whatever, loser. I don't killing you. You suck anyways. Like, it's a waste of my time.
Well, it's kind of cool
I'll
that
I'll hang out with you."
after the one serious bit of vulnerability that you get with him, where he's just like straight up protecting this kid, the very next issue is going to be your knockdown drag out fight with Wolverine. Like that's intentional.
Because they're both really short.
Well, I just mean that you're going to see him at
No, I
his
know.
toughest after you just saw it at
Yeah,
his most vulnerable.
yeah, like a battle to the death, like right after this. Yeah,
That's on purpose.
hmm, I think so too. Yeah, he's gonna get really pissed.
That's just because I've read that issue, but out of context.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've now read everything up to it. Because yeah, when I was doing single issue reviews a couple years ago, that was one I did, and I hadn't read anything up to it.
Hmm. Okay, nice. Yeah, I would definitely like to keep reading this. Like, I'll probably will keep up with it.
Yeah,
Keep up with it. I say like as if it's coming out
it's coming out
monthly,
month to
but
month,
you know what
but
I
you'll
mean.
you'll you'll finish it at some point. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I'll always keep reading. Like it is a really huge run, but
I'm
I'll
too
definitely keep
curious
going.
to know just how deep he gets in developing that vulnerability with Grey Hulk.
Hmm. Oh, I'm just excited to get to Joe Fixit.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot
I
about
want to see this Grey Hulk be a bouncer.
that. Well, Austin, are you ready to move on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And I want to thank Joe Turner for asking for this again and for his super chats and everybody else's in the comments tonight. Thanks for interacting with us. And thanks for watching this after the fact if you did that. On Thursday, we're doing another request, and Austin and I are finally going to talk about Planet of the Apes together. Bag Studios asked for that, and I don't think I've ever done anything with it on the channel.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like I've reviewed some of the new series as they've come out, but I don't think I've ever talked about the original.
That would be a fun one. You know how you did like the Nightmare movies and the Friday, or not Friday, Halloween movies, and I think Eric did Mission Impossible. That would be a fun series to do that kind of a video on.
Just do
Just like an hour.
the overview.
Yeah, just like an overview on original movies.
That's a great idea.
Because I don't know if I have an hour worth of things to say about some of the sequels, but that would be a fun overview, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like the original, I could talk about for 3 hours. Like that's not going to be hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've never seen anything past Beneath, so I'm curious to do that. I know I know you went through them when the new one came out.
Yeah, and I think
you?
Yep, and I think you'll find it really interesting because you'll see the seeds for like the prequel movies.
Mm-hmm. You're telling me that I was really surprised that characters came from those. I never knew that.
Mm-hmm. And then 3 is amazing because it's like a comedy movie with a super dark ending.
Really?
Oh yeah, like that movie's mostly comedic. And then
that's great.
That ending hits and you're like, whoa.
Well, anyway,
yeah, it's great.
We appreciate you guys. So that's what we're doing on Thursday. I will be back on Wednesday for a Captain Logan show. And Friday night, I've got a writer's meeting, so we're not going to have a rewind commentary. And that means it's time for a mini marathon. And Austin and I are going to watch at least some of the 1943 Batman serial for Batmay, which I have never watched. I've seen the 47, but it's been forever. Or the 47, the 49. But the 43 I've never watched.
Yeah, I've never seen any of those serials. That'll be fun.
I don't know how much of it we'll do, Austin, because it's like 3.5 hours long. But we'll do at least half.
Yeah,
of
whatever
it,
we can do.
I imagine.
We made it through She-Hulk. We'll see.
But it's on YouTube.
I should say Secret Invasion. That was worse.
That was worse. Somehow. She-Hulk was less boring.
Mm-hmm.
And it at least had that
it
crazy
to talk about.
It at least had that crazy ending to talk about. Like Secret Invasion, by the time it was done, like I wasn't sure if I was a human being anymore. Like
No, She-Hulk was way more fun to talk about and kind of laugh with the audience about. And then Secret Invasion was just boring.
I'm glad you finished that sentence because I was going to say I don't think I was laughing with it. I'm pretty sure I was laughing more at it, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to get going. Thanks, guys. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Good night, everybody.